look at some of the ways that cultures treat those who are poor. And your textbook covers some of these things. And remember, they have this functionalist perspective, and they go, well, why does poverty still exist? And they said, well, from one perspective, they say, well, look at some of the jobs that the poor perform, that the poor do. They do the unskilled and dangerous jobs, and if we didn't have poor people, the text argues, who would do these jobs? What?
Functional.
So yeah, the functionalist perspective, right? There's actually something really intriguing that I never really thought much about till this year. It's talking about the unskilled and dangerous jobs. There's a clause in, I want to say this 15th Amendment, where it says you cannot be forced to do labor unless you've been convicted of a crime. And you start looking at what's happening in the prison system, where a lot of prison systems are putting the convicts to work, sometimes for companies that then sell the product the prisoners make. So it's just this very odd.
But they get paid off of that, don't they? They got like $2.
Like 10 cents.
You know, they get paid, but if you think about it, we say minimum wage is this, and then you get convicted of a crime, and then you're forced to work for a company that then like, well, we need to recoup some of our costs. So then they, at what point does this not start worrying you? Because let's think, if I want to increase my labor force, what might I push for? Stricter laws. Yeah, that's one of the concerns here. Low-cost labor. Serving the affluent. If you go over to Mountain Brook, I've tutored Mountain Brook families, or I still tutor Mountain Brook families, and many of them have maids who come and do all of their stuff. They do all of the work around the house, and do all the shopping, and the cleaning, and the laundry, and all of that stuff. Volunteering for drug trials. That was the one I was like, oh, never thought about that one. Did anyone hear what happened in India this past week with drug trials? It was a cervical cancer trial. They had two groups. One group was getting scanning and treatment for cervical cancer. The other group wasn't even being scanned for cervical cancer. They were just going to see what happened. The control group. Yeah, what happened? Well, it just now came to light because some of the women in the control group got cancer, and they discovered they weren't being screened for it. Because they were like, and you're like, that reminds me of an experiment done here in the States. It's really, really concerning. But if you look, like, say, the back of the UAB report, I don't know if you've ever done this. There's drug trials that you can earn like $75 or $300 or whatever. You think, well, who's serving these? Purchase products that would otherwise be discarded. I always feel guilty whenever I go to like a thrift store, because I usually am only buying something from a thrift store if I'm going to do a party, like an 80s party or whatever. And then when I'm buying clothing, I'm like, oh, this looks horrible. Then I think some people shop here for their clothing. Do anyone else ever have that guilt? Just me? All right.
Yeah, I know.
If you need me over here, I'll be like, I know, I feel bad.
Somebody's at black markets.
Yeah. Well, the black market would be something different.
Well,
It would be illicit, illegal. This is more, I think, thrift
right,
store.
right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, at least from where I come from, we don't have thrift stores primarily. We have black markets. So either the stuff's stolen or fake.
Oh, you also have a lot of those. I think New York would have to have thrift stores.
Not in the city. Not in the city that I know of.
Don't think that.
Maybe
I feel like we have
upstate.
Yeah, I think they would have a lot of thrift stores.
like the fast ones too.
This is an empirical question. We can look up thrift stores in New York. But purchase products. Did anyone like? I know y'all are not reading your textbook, but there was like one little factoid that sort of jumped out in this chapter that I was like, oh, that is like doubly screwing the country of Nigeria. Apparently, we send a lot of our used computers to Nigeria, and they say something like 75% don't work, so they immediately go into Nigerian landfills, where all the toxic elements then leach into their soil. It's like, oh, that's awesome. Go us. Has anyone seen or read Nickel and Dimed by All right. What do y'all think? So what does she do? What does she do in this book? What is
She takes 10, is it like 10 jobs that are minimum wage?
I don't know if it's 10, but she does take a lot. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not 10.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like around there. And she tries to survive. She's a journalist, and she tries to survive like on just the minimum wage from that job.
On that job. How well does she do?
Oh, she couldn't even pay like the first month. She could not even pay to be poor. It's the way she put it.
It's expensive to be poor.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. In many ways, very, very expensive to be poor. And she tries to make do on the minimum wage salary. Like I think she worked. I know she worked at a Walmart as a waitress.
She worked at a laundromat.
Laundromat.
Yeah, she worked at
A cleaning service, right?
Yeah.
And Mary Maids or something.
a laundromat.
And so she's writing about her. Anyway, she writes about her experience. And so one of the things, I mean, this is gonna sound bad, but I had totally forgotten. Like it was like when I read this book, I was like, oh, it was like horror. So I was remembering all of the really crappy jobs I had, where you have to buy the uniform they tell you, right? You have to do that way at work. You know, like sometimes be like, okay, you gotta buy brown pants and a whatever shirt and some kind of shoes, and they don't give you that. They just go, you have to go buy it if you want to work here. What about control over your schedule? Like how far out, if you work a job like she does, how far out do you know your schedule?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, right? So there's a concert you want to go to next month. What?
You better ask off now.
You ask off and you may not get it, or you may get called in, and you start thinking, wow, that's, what about how exciting is it to be a cashier, say at Walmart? What?
The worst.
I don't know if that's the worst.
Service at Walmart.
I once worked, the people who, they call it facing, is that the right word? Has anyone done this job?
That's what I do currently.
Facing, we pull everything forward so it makes a big row.
I went from cashier to customer service at Walmart to Target to facing to electronics and eBay. So all I do all day, like for example, Wednesday night for 4.5 hours, I faced the store. For 4.5 hours.
I worked for like 2 days doing it like third shift, and then I was like, I can't do that. It's like, that is horrible. I'm not saying that's the worst job ever, but it wasn't very fun.
It's better than customer service at Walmart.
Really?
Oh.
I thought customer service would be like the cushy job.
You would wish that, but that's where everyone goes for their problems. If something goes wrong with anything at all, it is your fault, and you will hear it. And then you get to like return stolen merchandise a lot and give them money for it. So that's awesome. Very fun. Target's a lot better. I'd rather be facing shelves than give away money. That could be
Yeah, wow. So you know it's stolen, but you can't do anything.
Yeah.
That's awesome. They offer little in the way of retirement, right? So, or let's think about if you call in sick, do they give you, do you get paid? You may, some of these jobs, but many of these jobs, you sort of got to think like, these are these low-paying, very boring, repetitive jobs. If you don't work, you don't get paid. And who tends to occupy these jobs? You sort of got to start,
Single parents.
I mean, you sort of thinking, are there any gender differences in these kind of jobs? Yeah, you start thinking, I wonder if there's any racial difference in who tends to end up long-term these kind of jobs. And that's one of the things your textbook wants to point out. There's another book called The Working Poor. Do you remember that one? It's another great book on poverty. Maybe you're like, it's my biography, right? I don't know why I need to read a book on working poor. One of the things that really sort of struck me was their argument that so many people are one missed paycheck away from losing their apartment. Because they're like, well, let's say something happens to your car, so you get that repaired, well, but you miss work because you don't have your car, and then, it's like, I'm like, oh man. I'm also struck by how much it takes to get hired at one of these jobs. Like, I mean, I'm going to age myself. This is going to be the second class in a row that's happened. Last class, I was reminded that when I was applying for jobs, the fast food jobs, when I was in high school, all you had to do was fill out this. Did anyone apply for a fast food job recently?
It's this plus the class.
You did? What all did you have to do?
Just fill out the form, your name, address, whom to, in emergency, whom to contact, and if you have work somewhere else, that's it.
Really? They didn't make you take a personality test?
When I applied at like Subway, they had like a whole sheet full of math problems that you had to do.
One of my neighbors applied at churches, not churches, it's one of the seafood places, I can't think of it, Long John Silver's. And he had math problems, a personality test, a writing test. I'm like, this is fast food, right?
I actually had an HR manager once tell me to go back and lie more on the personality test.
Go back and lie more.
Like, she liked me as a candidate for the job, but there's some result that they have to get from that test before she could have hired me. So I was told to go back and lie more.
And I remember the last time I took one of those, there's one question that was like, if a coworker stole something, would you report them? And I was like, I don't know, it depends. What did they steal? like,
No, you have to say yes.
yeah, but I was like, I can't answer this question. Was it a soda on a hot day or a television? You know, like, how long have they worked here? I mean, like, seriously. I also am struck by how many of these companies require drug tests. Like, that actually really strikes me out. Like, really? I think you would kind of need to. But that's just my own opinion. Do y'all find that really bizarre that to flip burgers you need to pass a drug test?
Well, there's a lot of places that it says on the sheet, but they don't actually do it.
And like some places, like at a certain level, they'll drug test you once you move up.
Yeah.
Like at McDonald's, like I worked there for 2 years. Do not drug test.
So the signs that say McDonald's, we'll just point them out right now. You know, McDonald's. The signs that say we're a drug-free workplace.
That's
Or
a lie and a half.
Yes.
Let me just tell you.
so they say
I
that.
think I'm
So
the only sober person in that entire place.
but they just not you sober because they're usually testing for other drugs.
I used to work at Men's Warehouse, and I found out in less than a week that everyone there, smoked pot. And as a matter of fact, the owner of it, that big fat guy, whatever, comes on TV, I guarantee it, whatever. He actually like endorses and donates so much money for the legalization of pot, and every year they have like a whole party at his house, and he just gives everyone blunts, and yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
So Men's Warehouse, you say? All right. Wouldn't it be awesome as if when this gets out on the internet, he hears that and comes and goes, who said that? I'm not worrying about the legality, would I have to be would I have to tell him who said it? You know, you need to identify.
I've been told by the manager, the regional manager. I mean,
I'm just thinking it's funny.
they invited me out. It's like half an hour for a break. Hey, want to swim with Doobie? Sure.
Alrighty.
That's
No, it's awesome. I was just having this moment of what if would they require me to give up names? You have to tell the student who said that the owner of Men's Warehouse is smoking doobies during breaks.
I mean, you can't get fired there for doing that. That's one thing you can get fired.
I'm really happy about Men's Warehouse right now. Alright, let's not forget, this is the next one. I think companies are reaching into your private life with these drug tests, right? So most of them are testing for marijuana. And what's really surprises me is that the lower the wage, it seems the more likely you are to get tested. Except for y'all's experience. Because I remember Walmart tests.
Yeah, Walmart and Target, both the day of, you have 24 hours to go take the test. Yeah. I had a migraine that day when I had my interview with Walmart. Oh, it was awful. Having to go down to, and they're like, the only time I've ever had to take a drug test, I thought it was kind of ironic. Worked at Kmart, like Kmart, like drug tested, and it was like this like serious, like there was no way that because they like patted you down.
Yeah.
You can buy like the fake urine, you know, and strap it so you can. I'm serious. Like this stuff exists.
No, I mean, I'm aware it exists.
Right. So,
No, you're saying, you know, you can buy the fake urine and.
but it's because it's something that like pat you down, and I'm like, seriously, it's Kmart. Like,
It's Walmart.
I remember when I applied to Win Dixie, I was the first applicant who had actually started that, which I found kind of ironic. And then,
I heard about your previous job, man. Like, you worked for Men's Warehouse, all right.
But like, it was amazing. Like, they paid for the tests and everything. And I said, do I really have to take it? Because you guys just started. Like, yeah, unfortunately.
it feels like it would cost them so much more money to actually drug test.
Yeah, like had I failed, then, you know.
Yeah.
Florida, I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, Florida started mandatory drug testing for welfare recipients, and they ended up losing money.
Right.
The amount of money it cost them to do the test was more than the amount of money they saved by kicking people off welfare and drugs. It's weird.